We had some big news on the show last night, and that's where we're going to start.
Dawn is not a time of day, it's a state of mind. The gym is my church. I meet my biggest opponent every single day.
Another big hitter joins Team OTB.
Andy Lee, you're welcome to OTB.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, and really is great to be part of the team. Yeah.
Particularly when you got through. I knew you were the one for us, Andy, when we got through the experience of having to shoot that video, and your patience and...
I was delighted. I was surprised, and well, I was partly impressed by all the acting skills, especially JP.
You'll notice that all the shots that we shot at the Bojack's gym, most involving the off-the-ball people, most of which did not appear at all in the final edit for a very good reason.
It will be a good... I guess to call it blooper reel.
Yeah.
We're going to do a blooper reel at some point.
What actually happened? I wasn't there. So Adrian, you're not in the video there at all?
No, there's a very brief shot. Our acting is terrible, right?
Okay.
It's a very brief shot. So we set up all these sort of...
Who had final cut?
It was the brilliant collaborative work of Peter Cooney and Adrian Collins that did fantastic work on it. And the best decisions that they made in the course of that video was taking all of us out of it and leaving you in.
No, I was impressed, and I was, I don't know, grateful or whatever to say that all you guys would come down, take the time out, whatever, a couple of hours of your afternoon, and especially Kevin Kilban, like a legend like himself, to come down and to bother making a fool of himself in a video.
Making a fools of ourselves is something that comes exceptionally easy.
Not really making a fool, but having the crack, and I was chuffed with it, yeah.
No, it was great. And look, we're delighted to have you, and we're going to be announcing details over the next while of exactly what it is you're going to be coming to do with us, but we're going to see lots and hear lots of Andy Lee, thankfully, over the next little while. We've had loads of comments and people in touch with us since we made the announcement, obviously, last night. Kieran O'Reilly on Twitter, fantastic to see the right man get the job, an amazing talent and a great role model. Adam Nolan, who people will know, great pugilist, great pundit, great person.
I know, yeah.
Generally tends to be the tone of these things.
Embarrassing. Not embarrassing, but humbling, yeah, I guess.
Great alliteration there.
Yeah, well, yeah. Best analyst out there, says Jonathan Drennan. Another top-class sports star signed up. Congrats to both. Could listen to Andy all day long. Top man, says Warren Donnelly. I'm trying to embarrass you here as much as I possibly can. Ashling says, great choice. Andy's a great analyst, very well versed and easy to listen to. Congrats. And there was a couple here that I definitely wanted to get to. No better man, like Neymar joining PSG, says Warren here, the Duke of Dublin.
Yeah, that's nice.
Good comparison there.
Who's Kylian Mbappe then?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know. But
the young.
I'll take that.
I knew where you were going. It was a bit of me that was a little bit sort of incredulous, but
No, even though we knew between ourselves we were talking about it for a while, and I knew the video was shot and the announcement was going to be coming soon. Like when it was announced last night, I got a real buzz off it, on Twitter, and it's great.
That's class.
About it,
we're going to have you in loads, and we're going to get some of your more innermost thoughts. You're one of the contributors that we use regularly, who people regularly say, geez, I never thought about that, or never knew that, or you're offering something of an insight into a sport that I think frequently, it is a niche sport anyway, and actually you've got a capacity to communicate it in a way that I think resonates and people can understand easily. Yeah,
and as well as doing that, if there's one thing I'd like to do is to kind of highlight some of the boxers in Ireland and around the place who don't get as much publicity. Some fighters or some people in life just seem to always garner attention from the media, but there's, for every one you see, there's 10 other boxers plugging away in the gym and trying just as hard to get out there. And I'd like to use this platform as well if I can, just to highlight some of the other fighters, which I think I've tried to do over the last few months. So that'll be nice, you know, and use it to highlight Irish boxing. Yeah,
and I know you've done some stuff with Ryan Burnett as well that we haven't heard of yet, and we'll be hearing from that piece over the next while too. So that's to come. Some of the other ones here. Frank Lawler on Facebook. Who is he? Was one of the ones that stood out for me. And Lenny Clark, a quality addition. It'll be interesting to hear his views on other sports and not just boxing. I know that's something you're keen to do as well, to get your teeth stuck in across the other sports. Does this mean though that he's hanging up the gloves?
Doesn't necessarily, and it'll just be something to keep me busy while I'm not in the gym, you know. No, it doesn't mean I'm hanging up. It doesn't really change anything, you know. We spoke about it, and you've given me leeway to go to the gym whenever I want.
Absolutely.
So that's good.
Well, there's a real culture across off the ball, Andy, as you'll know, of people. The entire department are very keen to get to the gym. You know, you can tell by the shape of us all that we're.
Well, it's just it is an interesting, not a stage in my career, but a stage in my life. I am coming to the end of my career, but transition into the next thing you do. You know, and I've always enjoyed working with you guys in the punditry and stuff like that, but I never really saw there being. I never really thought there could be a career in it, but like, to have this opportunity to work with you guys it's great for me, you know, and I'm very grateful for the chance. So.
Yeah. Well, look, we're delighted to have you. Just in terms of that sort of decision about, like, am I done with this thing or am I not done with this thing in terms of your boxing? What are the factors that go into that? Like, I mean, I'm sure that obviously the financial aspect for any sports person is a huge aspect of it, but I mean, it's the one sport that frequently, at times, you look at very famous examples of boxers who went on too long, and I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why you might do that, but in terms of your own decision, I'm assuming obviously it's a very personal thing as to...
I still want to fight again, but I think that will always be that. You know, I think every fighter will always want to fight again or believe they'll have another fight in them. So that's kind of, even though I have that desire, I kind of pushed that to one side. The way it is now, in the sense I'm leaving it to fate or leaving it in the hands of the gods or whatever, the promoters who I work with, they know I want to fight. They know I'm available to fight. And if I've given them a list of guys I will fight, and, you know, a minimum purse that I will have to get in the ring again. And if they can match that and meet those things, then I will fight again. So I'm just going to leave it in their hands. If it doesn't happen, I won't be bitter. I won't have any regrets about what's happened and not fighting again. But I'm still young enough to fight. I'm still fit enough, and I still believe I'm good enough to win a world title again if the right fight comes along. So I'm gonna give it 4 to 6 months, and then if it doesn't come, then I'll make a call. But until then, I'm gonna just keep my options open and try and stay in relatively decent shape, and be ready, you know, when it comes. Yeah.
Just do the Shay Given thing of just not announcing your retirement, and
I don't really need a big announcement, you know. I don't. Like, I just would just say, look, I don't see, what's the big deal? Like, you know, I wouldn't have a big announcement. I don't know. I just say.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think that's in keeping with your personality, but at the same time, you know, and I think the country would want to say thanks a million for what you've done if and when we get to that point, you know, like that's the, I mean, I think that's part of the beauty of it, and it's certainly been part of the story with this association now, that people have been, like you can see yourself, that people are very enthused by it, and I'm assuming also that, like, from that kind of, like the point you make about, like, I'm not 100% sure, like a fighter will always want to have another fight, so like that makes it a really difficult decision to make, because it's not like a footballer where ultimately at some point you go, well, I just can't do this anymore, it's a team sport and I'm letting out everybody else down over here, whereas in boxing you can be, well, I can go back and I can give it a go and I can see how we go, and I might last a half a round, or I might last 4 rounds, or I might win the fight, but ultimately you can continue to do that. Like, I mean, we've seen some fighters, you can continue to do that until you're 50. Like, it's always going to be a tough call to make.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think it's anybody else's decision but the fighter himself, you know. Some people might have your best interests at heart and say, look, it's time to call it a day. Some people might have your best interests at heart and say, go ahead and keep fighting, you know. I think you have to satisfy your own desire. I don't know, it is a tough call, and there is for a lot of fighters, all the fighters who have been fighting at the highest level for a long time, they would have been earning so much money for a long time. Then those fights stop coming, and they still spend the money at the same level as their income is not coming in, and then they always want to have one more fight. So but fortunately for me, that's not been. I've always maintained a modest lifestyle, I think, and tried to be smart with any money I earned, because I earned it hard enough. It's hard enough to come by. But I don't know. Boxing it's just there's no one it's not like you run out of a contract, or I will continue to fight it as long as I want to fight, or stay open to it. But
yeah, it's certainly in your hands a lot more than any other sports star is. As you say, it's not down to contract or down to being out of favour with a manager. But kind of on that point of potentially returning to the ring, and this might not be linked exclusively to you, but in general, if you look at the fight scene in Ireland right now, it seems we're on the precipice of another great big night in Ireland. I mean, like south of the border in Dublin, or potentially Limerick or somewhere like that, that we are close to another big night, that there seems to be an appetite, that we haven't had this for a while now. And as I mentioned, you might be back in the ring yourself, and there's a number of up-and-coming boxers about to reach their peak.
I think, like you said, we're on the cusp of a new boom in Irish boxing, because there's so many young fighters coming up, and there are still a lot of established fighters, and fighters that who we haven't heard of so much, who are doing very well on an international level. Niall Kennedy won another fight recently last weekend in Boston. Spike O'Sullivan won a big fight in Montreal, so that was on HBO, so that's a huge result. And we know about Katie Taylor, we know about Michael Conlan, Paddy Barnes, Jason Quigley. These guys are all up and coming, and Ryan Burnett, still Carl Frampton. There's just so many great fighters that were competing at the highest level, just from Ireland. So it's only a matter of time before people, hopefully the TV companies get behind these guys, show their fights, and the public will get behind them. It's always been boxing I think has always been a hard sell in Ireland, but I believe in
terms of that high level sort of
I just think and getting in Ireland, they'll go to a big event, fans will pay to go to a big event, and you kind of almost have to put on the event for them to sell the tickets. But in terms of just supporting the sport, boxing, from fight to fight, I think it's always kind of been a hard sell for promoters. But hopefully they're talking about Katie Taylor returning and fighting in April in Dublin.
Unification fight possibly,
that would be the start of a new era in Irish boxing.
The weird thing about all of that as well is the timing of this. If we're kind of stepping out of the shadow of the Mayweather era in boxing, you look at all the names you've listed off there, and they're all fighters the neutral wants to watch, regardless of your nationality. They want to watch these fighters fight because they're bloody exciting.
Yeah, and they've got the skills to back it up. Every one of them, they're there by merit. They're not just hype jobs or hometown favourites, or things that guys who are just popular in Ireland, but if you step outside into the real world of boxing, they will get beat. These guys, Ryan Burnett, Carl Frampton, they can compete at any level, Katie Taylor's shown that. Mike Conlan will go on to show that, and I believe Paddy Barnes and Jason Quigley go on to show this. I could reel off 20 names here of fighters who are fighting and who are doing really well for themselves. And it's great time for Irish boxing, and me getting this job with you guys, I'll help to highlight that. Will be it'll be great for them. And
we won't ask you to do your pound for pound list. I know you were in with the lads last time. Is there any punditry that you're looking at? Because you've started to dip your toe as well. You're doing bits and pieces of co-commentary that with Sky. Is there any punditry or pundits or people that you look at that you admire that you think actually I could borrow a little piece of that? Or
no, I love Gary Neville. I listen to him speak about soccer all day long. I think he's really taken it to the next level and kind of left the rest of them. Well, the rest of them have had to step their game up to meet him, or he's kind of left a lot of them in his wake. I think he's by far the best commentator or pundit. When it comes to a sport, he's kind of clinical, he's concise and precise in what he says. And I'm a bit more bumbling, but I would like to be, Adam Booth, I know I'm like the Adam Booth fan club over here, but to me there's no one who breaks down boxing like him. He can give a real insight into boxing and the mindset of what it takes for fighters. So hopefully we can get him on here a few times, through my link up with him. I believe he's, I don't see how he's not used more in punditry. He believes there's some sort of conspiracy against him, but
you're not having it, Jerry.
They call him the Dark. His nickname is the Dark Lord.
I didn't know that. Right?
Yeah, and it's he always, I don't know, but I think Adam Booth, to me, he's just to talk boxing to him. He's one who always gives a great insight.
Because the thing about Neville that I think about it is that he frequently, a lot of the punditry not only on Sky, but probably primarily on Sky up to the point where Gary Neville came in and started revolutionising this thing, was pretty one-dimensional, and suddenly he came in and like challenged that entire thing, which was, for me, was just this like an enormous thing to do. And it's that, and it's the depth. It's proven for me that you can like have deep conversations about one topic.
People, it's not like
people are not turning off. They love it.
Well, like Monday Night Football now is a full-on feature, isn't it? Like you'll tune in at 7 to watch a match at 8 and just listen to the lads chat for an hour reviewing the weekend's football. Like but up to that point, it was so bland, and I think it's needed. And what you guys doing here every night and on the weekend is on par with that. You know, it's shown that there is an appetite for long form interest in pieces that go beyond the media training talk, which you get after every post-match interview and every you have, I don't want to name like Jermaine Jenis and these guys on Match of the Day. It's, you know, if you look at Skulls on Sunday, or or even the Sunday Supplement, I'd prefer to watch those any day than watch Match of the Day. I just fast forward for the Match of the Day.
It's very incident driven as well. Match of the Day tends to be, this decision was made, and what do you think it's right or wrong?
They'd love a bit more time themselves to discuss certain issues, but it's
a good point. Like, I think Match of the Day is at its best when there's like one game on and it's Match of the Day 2, and they've suddenly got an hour and a half or an hour to fill, and they've only got one game of highlights. Then they actually have to dig into the conversation, because it's not Jermaine Jenis's fault. It is to do with time restrictions, to do with the fact that they have to show highlights of every single game. And as you said, you have to show all the different incidents. Whereas if you're given the time, much like Off the Ball has to fill 3 hours every night, suddenly you have to find some sort of interesting discussion to fill this time around. And at the end of the day, that comes up with a very meaningful end product that people really seem to enjoy. And I think that the Gary Neville revolution has really emphasised that.
I also, like, part of the problem as well, I think, on particularly in a TV format, is that you're, like with a radio thing, so you decide, so let's say you're doing commentary of a game and you decide, that's a really interesting thing I want to talk about and I'm going to do that now. Whereas on TV, particularly with halftime or full-time or post-match analysis or review shows, it's particularly around live match coverage, actually, it's frequently the decisions about what's talked about is not left with the pundits. It's because the nature of TV, it's so high production, you've got to go and build a piece of ET that fits into this thing, that frequently, sometimes it is, but frequently it's a producer somewhere saying, actually, that's really interesting, we'll talk about that. And then the pictures are there, so the pundit has to talk over them. And suddenly, before you know it, it's not been driven by the, 20 or 30 year career of a former footballer. It might have something really interesting to say. They've been forced in to talk about this one thing that's, that ultimately they have to deliver something to talk about over this VT, rather than give, like I'm saying, if it's on radio or it's on a format like this, you can actually just go deep on, whatever your points might be. So, but anyway, look at, we've lots of good stuff that we're going to be hearing from you, Andy. We're delighted to have you, and delighted to have you in the studio as well. Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.